Just because you've retired doesn't mean you've lost your love of learning. That's why Play-Doh exists, to help turn retirement into your most enriching chapter yet. Right now, join Play-Doh Madison and participate in new classes starting next week, February 17th. Join to learn about current events, explore the Hollywood musical, or workshop your writing or art with other intellectually curious adults. All of these classes and more are included in your Play-Doh membership, now just $30. Become a member today at platomadison.org. That's Plato Madison.org. Do you know what's coming up at the Madison Symphony Orchestra? Limited tickets remain for their special MSO at the Movies live performances of Star Wars: A New Hope on February 22nd and 23rd. It's the Overture Concert Organ's 20th season, and it continues with the return of operatic tenor Limmy Pulliam. And the final forte is happening on March 5th, a free and open to the public event. Check out the upcoming events at the Madison Symphony at madisonsymphony.org/calendar. Today on CityCast Madison. It's the Friday News Roundup, and this week I'm joined by CityCast Madison's Haley Sperling and Rob Thomas. Spring primary elections are next week. Changes are coming to our local food scene, with EatStreet filing for bankruptcy and ownership changes at the Ohio Tavern. Dane County's planned new director of human services will no longer be taking that role. Plus, Summerfest lineups have dropped. It's Friday, February 14th. I'm Bianca Martin, and here's what Madison's talking about. Welcome to the Friday News Roundup. Believe it or not, I'm walking on air. Happy Valentine's Day. For you snow lovers out there, a lot of beauty to love. And for those of you who love democracy, it's your time. Spring primaries are here. Let's get into it. Joining me today is the leader of this here podcast, Haley Sperling. What's up?
Hello. There's so much to love here in Madison, Wisconsin. You're right.
So much to love. So much love. And we've got our newsletter editor, Rob Thomas. Hello.
Hello. This feels like part of Love Week, even though it technically isn't. The love in the room here. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just really honestly not ready to let it go. But all of us love democracy. That's one of those things we love and respect. And Haley, you've got the news on the primaries.
Yeah, believe it or not, we got primaries next week. I'm not going to sing it, but next Tuesday, February 18th, is the spring primary. Are you guys ready to vote? Do you know who you're voting for? It's okay if the answer is no, because I'm going to tell you.
Won't be sharing that here, but ready to vote, ready to weigh in at the ballot box.
And so just a quick refresher on who exactly we're voting for again. The short answer is it pretty much depends on where you live, but everyone in the state will have the opportunity to vote for the state superintendent of public instruction. There are currently 3 candidates in the running for that position. There's the incumbent, Dr. Jill Underly, the Sauk Prairie School Superintendent, Jeff Wright, and Milwaukee-based education consultant, Brittany Kinzer. So the race is technically nonpartisan, but both Underly and Wright are pretty much self-described Democrats. And Kinzer used to describe herself as one, but these days she says she's more of a moderate. And what exactly does the state superintendent do? They oversee Wisconsin's public school system, which includes roughly 2,200 public schools. And they also oversee around 600 employees at the State Department of Public Instructions. One of their primary responsibilities is submitting the biennial budget request and distributing grant funding to school districts. This person, they also help guide and set statewide priorities for education. For example, Do schools need to do more work on reading, et cetera, et cetera. And Wisconsin has some of the highest disparities in the nation between Black and white students when it comes to reading and math scores. So this person really has their work cut out for them. Not like any of that is a surprise.
This is a huge role. And in fact, our governor, Tony Evers, formerly had this role as Wisconsin State Superintendent of Public Instruction. So
true. You never know where it could lead. And just to note, Cap Times has really great interviews with Underly and Wright, and the Wisconsin Examiner has a great piece on Kinzer. So we'll link to those in our show notes so you can learn more about the candidates, because there is more election news for us to dive into on the city council side of things. There are 3 districts that will have candidates on the ballot in the primary. They are districts 9, 10, and 12. In District 9, which is located on the far west side, kind of out by Middleton, the 3 candidates that are running are Rick Cruz, Joanne Pritchett, and incumbent alder Nikki Conklin. She's served on council since 2021. Cruz is a school finance consultant with the State Department of Instruction. We just talked about the DPI. And Pritchett is the retired co-founder of the African American Health Network. Again, Cap Times has a really solid Q&A with all of the candidates that we will link to in our show notes so you could read more about them and their specific stances on the issues. In District 10, which is on the southwest side of town, almost by Fitchburg, there are also 3 candidates in the running, some of whom you might already be familiar with. There's current City Council President Yannette Figueroa Cole. She's facing a challenge from former City Council President Sherry Carter and former council administrator Lisa Veldren. So Carter was first elected in 2015 and again in 2021. She lost her election to Figueroa Cole in 2023 by only 82 votes. So this was a really close race. At the time, back in 2023, Veldren was working as Carter's campaign treasurer, according to the Cap Times. So these are all women who know the city very well. They know the election system very well. And it seems like Veldren is really leaning into her policy experience on the campaign. So kind of interested to see how this one shakes up in the primary. Finally, in District 12, which is over on the north side of town, kind of in the Warner Park area, there's a primary, but not really. Incumbent alder Imani Latimer Burris is facing a challenge from Julia Matthews. And originally, Hussein Amak was also running, but has since dropped out of the race. So they're still going to appear in the primary ballot, but it doesn't really do much in terms of moving the needle. So get your pens ready, get your voter ID ready, make sure you are registered. Polls will be open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. You can find your polling place and see a sample ballot at myvote.wi.gov, which of course we will also be linking to in our show notes for your viewing pleasure.
All right. Well, y'all know what's up for this primary. Can't say we didn't tell you. We love voting on this show. We love voting in Madison. And there's something we might love more, and it's food. And there's some changes to our food scene. Before we get into that, though, let's take a quick break. Let's be honest, just because you've retired doesn't mean you've stopped wondering, exploring, and learning. That's why Plato is here. It's here to help you turn retirement into your most curious and enriching chapter yet. Plato Madison connects intellectually curious adults through special interest classes, fascinating lectures, social activities, and cultural outings around Wisconsin. Right now, you can join Plato and participate in these upcoming classes. Try chair yoga, explore the musical evolution of the Beatles, or dive into the nuances of global affairs. All of these classes and more are included in a Plato membership. Plus, it's more affordable than ever to invest in your love of learning. Half your memberships are only $30. Become a member today at platomadison.org. That's Plato Madison.org. Don't wait. New classes start next week on February 17th.
This is an ad from BetterHelp Online Therapy. We always hear about the red flags to avoid in relationships, but it's just as important to focus on the green flags. If you're not quite sure what they look like, therapy can help you identify those qualities so you can embody the green flag energy and find it in others. BetterHelp offers therapy 100% online, and sign-up only takes a few minutes. Visit BetterHelp.com today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com.
All right. Love is in the air. I'm sorry. Still on Love Week, not letting it go. How about love of our food scene? It's pretty real. It's pretty deep.
It is. And whether you love to go out to eat or order in, there's some big developments in Madison's dining scene. First of all, EatStreet, which is the food ordering service that was kind of a Cinderella story in Madison. It was born in a UW-Madison dorm in 2010, announced this week that it was filing for bankruptcy. And this was not a surprise. It feels like this has been coming for years. Back in 2021, the company was sued by some of its drivers who said that they weren't being properly compensated by the company. And at the time, EatStreet settled for $1.24 million, but then told the judge that they didn't think they could pay that money and stay in business. They did end up paying the settlement, but they basically got rid of all their drivers, and what was a food delivery service now became a food ordering service. And about a year ago, EatStreet started looking for someone to buy the company, but so far they've had no takers. EatStreet said the issues really started for them during the pandemic, particularly when larger competitors like Uber Eats and DoorDash were starting to make really aggressive moves to move into the communities where EatStreet was. And it was kind of ironic because I was researching this morning and I Googled EatStreet, and the first two links that came up on Google were sponsored links for Uber Eats and DoorDash. So
That tracks.
like you could literally see how they were muscling in.
The
And
sharks have come in.
yeah, exactly. It's great. Big corporations taking care of other big corporations. It's great. But anyway, EatStreet kind of got left holding the bag. And so the company wants to use bankruptcy to restructure its organization and its debt. And they're going to have a hearing in April on its reorganization plan. So, maybe they can emerge from this stronger than ever. That's always the hope when you go into bankruptcy. But, it's something that we've been hearing about financial troubles with them for years now.
Yeah. I'm not going to lie. When this story first came up, I was like, didn't this already happen?
Right.
Like, haven't they been bankrupt this whole time? When you say that their troubles started in the pandemic, that's such a bummer because that really should have been their time to shine. It makes me think of like the whole Skype/Zoom debacle, where it's like Skype before the pandemic, when you're talking about video calling someone, it's like, oh, let's Skype, whatever. And the way that they fumbled the bag so hard in the pandemic, like who uses Skype anymore? Not me. It's all Zoom. It's only Zoom or Google Meet, whatever. It's a bummer to see that the pandemic didn't actually help their business and that they weren't so aggressive in their marketing or they weren't so aggressive in their business structures that they got muscled out by Uber Eats and DoorDash and Grubhub and whatnot. I mean, the market, to be fair, the market is quite saturated. But I don't know. It just seems like this was a huge missed opportunity. And they are the one company that I really don't believe it when they say our troubles started in the pandemic. Like, I'm sorry that they didn't. They really didn't.
Well, there are just so many troubles with those sort of delivery services, and you don't want to mess with hungry people, and they do. I've had so many times where I'm like livid. And I remember deleting EatStreet, and I was apparently blissfully unaware of their troubles, but I just deleted it because I'm like, I'm spending too much money getting all this food out. Like I use them a lot, but there's just constantly issues. And it's not just them. I think Uber Eats has this as well, but it's just like frustrations, probably with the drivers and things not showing up, but something about the local component. It's like it's not enough. Like you need to be maybe bigger to handle the woes of that business.
Or just order from the restaurant. That's what I try and do whenever possible, and go pick it up and get rid of that middleman. And then you could check for yourself at the restaurant whether you got your order right or not. So
True.
Facts.
Speaking of going to the restaurant, Ohio Tavern, which is the east side of Ohio Avenue, is changing owners. Ross Hubbard, a partner with Aftershock Classic Arcade, great place, and Ryan Schultz, the owner of Baldwin Street Grill in Breakwater, Monona, they're buying the bar from Josh Swensel, who has opened it since 2016. And again, the new owners say they don't plan to change much about the bar, which is known for it's great tacos and karaoke nights and stuff, and they don't really want to mess with that. The thing I think they really want to do is sort of put it on a firmer financial footing. The Ohio Tavern has reportedly been beset by money and tax issues in recent years, according to reporting by Samara Kalk-Derby of the Wisconsin State Journal. Agents from the State Department of Revenue visited the bar last year after repeatedly filing tax liens against it for unpaid sales tax. through 2023 and early 2024, which is not good. And so I don't think the current owner, Spencer, has really commented on this, but I think the Ohio is like, I mean, it's a really charming place. It's one of the oldest bars in Madison. You've got that Blatt sign out front. I mean, it's just a really iconic Madison bar. And so it's not one you want to see fall on a hard time. So hopefully these new guys can get it back on firmer financial footing.
I'm excited for new ownership because, like you said, Rob, they really are just kind of an institution that's been around forever. They did that big remodel a while back, and it's just kind of come into the 21st century without still losing that dive bar charm, you know? The tacos are great. The vibes are good. I'm excited for a change in ownership. It seems like this previous owner just really could not have his act together. I know there were some other issues and allegations made against him in other spheres. I don't want to bring it up here because we don't have time to get into that, but I'm excited to see that happening. And it seems like I love Aftershock. I love Baldwin Street. So this will be a plus.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I know that we don't have enough time to get into it, but it is definitely something on the community level that you would hear different things about frustrations around the ownership. And, on the sphere, I've already seen people taking shots at the new owners and saying, yeah, but they're connected with this. And, it's a really small town and there are allegations, people not behaving the way that they should be. And it's a really tricky situation because I've always thought this is such a great bar. So, yeah, it will be interesting if they can get the act together, I suppose.
Yeah. I mean, I know the big public flop was their illegal bingo nights that were happening, right?
I have to say that I have to put a correction because that was something that Josh put out there publicly about the reason that the revenue, the state was there was because of the bingo. But apparently that was not true.
Oh.
Because Samara did all this digging and open records requests and they were there for this unpaid taxes. And Josh put it out on social like, oh, it's because we're not supposed to have bingo here without a license. So, yeah, that does not help. I don't think when you're lying to the public about why the State Department of Revenue is knocking on your front door.
Yikes.
So,
yikes. Yeah. That's interesting. That's really interesting. I'm glad that you had that.
Well, there's a lot here and a lot of changes in the food scene for sure. Changing of plans happens everywhere, including at the county level, which we're about to talk about in a second. But first, before we get into that news, let's take a quick break.
Building a portfolio with Fidelity Basket Portfolios is kind of like making a sandwich. It's as simple as picking your stocks and ETFs, sort of like your meats and other toppings, and managing it as one big, juicy investment. Now that's pretty good. Learn more at fidelity.com/baskets. Investing involves risk, including risk of loss. Fidelity Brokerage Services, LLC. Member NYSE SIPC.
You know what's smart? Enjoying a fresh gourmet meal at home that you didn't have to cook. Meet Factor, your loophole in the laws of mealtime. Chef-crafted meals delivered with a tap, ready in just 2 minutes. You know what's even smarter? Treating yourself without cheating your goals. Factor is dietitian approved, chef prepared, and you plated. Pretty smart, huh? Refresh your routine and eat smart with Factor. Learn more at factormeals.com.
All right, y'all. Clashes at the county level. I'm sure you've probably seen this because it's big news after the recently announced new head of the Human Services Department for Dane County, the county's largest department, like by a mile. They were offered the position and then they dropped out last week. And it's kind of a mess. The candidate, Amy Everett, was offered the role 3 weeks ago, accepted the offer, but then was put off by an, in her words, quote, oppositional, unquote, meeting with a Dane County supervisor, which we now know is Heidi Wegleitner, after Everett accepted the role. So basically, Everett hadn't signed the contract for joining us and was waiting to sign after they attended a private meeting request from Wegleitner. And the meeting apparently was to ask further questions about issues that Everett had at her last job, running operations at Mine Springs Health and West Springs Hospital in Grand Junction, Colorado. That healthcare provider was audited a couple of years ago and cited for a number of issues during the pandemic between 2022 and 2024 around compliance of meeting state guidelines. There were tons of complaints around care and apparently some pretty concerning prescribing medicine practices that were happening there. So some serious issues. That said, Everett went through the whole vetting process to get this role, and this meeting came after she accepted. And yeah, she's no longer planning on joining us here in Wisconsin. So as some quick context, the dropout comes after a 2-year national search to fill this role and months of interviews and public sessions for Amy Everett. It's a huge role. The Human Services Department has a budget of $313 million, and it operates the county's mental health services, programs for the elderly. It administers foster care and does the food share program. So it's a pretty big deal that the county was trying to take some thoughtful care around who they were bringing in. But this meeting after this woman got the role apparently didn't go well, according to her. In Everett's words, in the email declining the role, she said, quote, "I'm concerned with what appeared like a lack of alignment with my candidacy." And quote, "It was clear to me there was more familiarity and comfortability with the incumbent candidate." As context, that's Astra Yukamir, the interim director, who's been the interim director over this whole search. And one more quote from Everett, her saying that the experience felt more like a deposition than a welcoming introduction to the role.
Yikes.
Needless to say, County Executive Melissa Agard and her office are not happy because they wanted Amy Everett in this position. They put out a press release with a clear rebuke of the actions of the supervisor. This is a quote from that press release. "Putting candidates through months of scrutiny, including interviews and asking the public to weigh in on their qualifications, only to then disrupt the outcome after an offer is made, is unfair and disingenuous." So there's drama, naturally. This is
spicy.
Yeah, it's not the first candidate. This is actually the second candidate recommended from the executive's office that the county board in some way, one way or another, had a hand in thwarting. So if y'all remember, former executive Joe Parisi 2 years ago put forward Representative Sheila Stubbs for the position, and the board bucked that nomination too, saying Stubbs wasn't qualified and she wouldn't have the time to do the job, even though she later agreed to step down from her role in the Capitol. So, after the Stubbs block, the county actually changed the whole process of hiring for these kinds of positions to make it less political. But politics, here we are. It sounds like that was a bit of a dream. Obviously, the executive put out a press release. The board also put out a press release quoting Weg Leitner and the county chair, Patrick Miles. Patrick Miles basically said, hey, this candidate said that she would answer any additional questions. And if she can't handle them, basically, if you can't handle the heat, get out of the kitchen, because you're not going to succeed in this job if you can't handle pressure. And Weg Leitner basically said, I'm shocked by this outcome, and was satisfied with Everett's responses to their questions. And she was disappointed in the executive's press release, calling it misleading. Now the search is back on, and resources will once again be needed for hiring someone new. But I have a ton of thoughts. What are y'all's reactions to this failure?
This is just kind of a rough start for Melissa Agard, isn't it? Right? Because like you mentioned, this is a massive job. This is the county's largest department. This is rough. The fact that we're getting conflicting stories, it leads me to think that the relationship between Agard and the board is not as close as it could or as it should be, or that it's getting off to kind of a rough start. She is the new sheriff in town these days. And so having the board basically just kind of go against her in this regard is a little bit nerve-wracking in a way. The county has just got kind of a lot of drama. We just talked to our friend Lucas Robinson about the drama happening with another major county employee being the Dane County Regional Airport Director. There's been drama in the past with our zoo director. These are some major public entities. These are some major organizations that our county is running that have had some big issues. So why can't we get it together, y'all? What's going on here?
And what really struck me was how both sides took it to 11, right away.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It wasn't polite governmentese sort of couching hard feelings. That they both sides were right off the bat. It was drama, as Bianca said. And also really these questions didn't come up at all during those months of public hearings about her previous position. This comes up now after she's accepted the job. Oh, by the way, what was that's question number one when you interview a candidate. So I can understand the feeling of feeling sort of insulted. I thought that the job had been offered and you're still asking questions, apparently in kind of a confrontational tone. At least that's how Amy Everett described it. I can see where that would not bode well for your tenure if right off the jump, that's how you're being treated. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, that's the exact thought that I had. And, in terms of them turning it to 11, position has been open for 2 years. They had a search for 2 years and they had months of going through this. And so I can see why the executive office is heated about this. And then the pushback having that same level of heat is like, they're basically like, how dare you kind of undermine our role in the hiring process? I thought completely like, yeah, what about during the hiring process, asking those questions then? Because personally, if you're concerned about someone's candidacy, like about work in a story that's been out for years, like you should have brought that up beforehand. And if I were the candidate, I'd definitely look at that private meeting as hostile in terms of, you want more about my candidacy. This is a Black woman moving across the country to arrive to people who are basically sweating her credentials after months of her sweating her credentials. Like that's the life of a Black woman. And I don't blame her for bowing out after months of opportunities for scrutiny of her resume and coming to try and run this huge department to a majority white board. Like there are some dynamics that I just can't not look at. Like she probably saw the writing on the wall. And I kind of hate that the county wasted her time in a way.
Yeah.
Because I imagine she jumped through many hoops and accepting the role and just so you know, like we want to ask more from you. We want to know more. And the idea that that's just totally normal, that doesn't really track for me. One of the things that they pointed out was they felt like the incumbent candidate had more support, and that's Astra Yukamir. And that person was a 2-time finalist for the role, who has a lot of experience in the city and served as deputy director of this department. And at this point, there are some people saying, well, what's next? We need to fill this role. Well, of course, look to Astra. They're already doing it. And it does kind of feel like that's exactly what the candidate who just dropped out said, was that there's entrenched support. So if that's true, it's a power struggle, it looks like.
Yeah, this will be an interesting story to watch. We're going to keep watching it as we've been watching it for the past however many years.
Right. Well, we've got fun news with Hearts on Fire. Do you know that song? Hearts on Fire, I reach out to you tonight. We're reaching out to you, Rob.
Music fans are walking on air because it may be really cold and snowy right now in Wisconsin. It's going to get colder and snowier in the next week. But there's a ray of sunshine coming from next summer, and that's the schedule for Milwaukee Summerfest drop this week. The music festival takes place in Meyer Festival Park on the shores of Lake Michigan over 3 weekends, June 19th to 21st, June 26th to 28th, and July 3rd to the 5th. And so far, they've announced 150 of the 600 acts who will play there over 9 days, including 8 of the 9 main stage headliners at American Family Amphitheater. I mean, it's always a typically eclectic mix of all genres. You've got Def Leppard, Hozier, James Taylor, Megan Thee Stallion, The Killers, Lainey Wilson, Benson Boone, and the Lumineers. So that means there's one main stager that they haven't announced yet.
A mystery.
Yeah, I think they always do that. I mean, it's probably they can't book somebody yet, but it always is like, who is that? Yeah. And on the poster, it's blurred out, so it's even more mysterious. So the tickets for those headliners are always separate. So that's like the price of a regular concert, but you can get general admission passes to see most of the other bands playing on the other stages for like $30 a day. And I didn't realize this, but until February 18th, you can buy this Power Pass, which it's like $57 and gets you into all 9 days.
That's it? 57?
Isn't that crazy? That's like $8 a day. Yeah, if you went to all 9 days.
I'm about to jump on that.
I know.
That is a power pass.
It truly is a power pass. Yeah. And so I always look and I'm always trying to go what day should I go and who's headlining, who's on the side stages. I feel like this year of the main stage headliners, I would like to see the Killers. I've never seen them.
Me too.
And I'm just sure they put on a really good show, even though their heyday was probably 20 years ago. So that's kind of the one I got my eye on. What about you guys?
Megan Thee Stallion.
The Stallion.
That looks That would be incredible.
With Flo Milli. Like, yes, I would love to see that show from the headliners. That's my top for sure. Like, there's a lot of names on this lineup that I'm super stoked about. Gary Clark Jr., Jack's Mannequin, Japanese Breakfast, Porter Robinson, my personal favorite. I've never been to a bad Porter show. Baby Metal, super stoked. They actually, I think we're just at the Sylvie not that long ago.
Yep, sold out.
Yeah. Like there's some heavy hitters. There's a lot happening.
Another one that jumped out for me was Genuine.
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
Awesome. Yeah.
I think that the side shows, no disrespect to the headliners, like they're killing it. They're always killing it. You know, it's the Killers, it's Megan Thee Stallion, it's Def Leppard, right? They know what they're doing. But I love the smaller shows. I always love a more intimate venue because you kind of know that the crowd is like there for the music, right? You know, the people that show up to those shows, they love this artist, they want to see them. It's not just like, oh, I'm going to see Megan Thee Stallion so I can say I saw Megan Thee Stallion, you know, without really even knowing her songs or anything like that. Not to say there's anything wrong with that. There isn't, but it's just like, I love being in the middle of the pit with a bunch of people who know the words. Like, that is my favorite place to be.
I saw the Yeah Yeah Yeahs, and that was one of the like bigger concerts. And I'm not gonna lie, like there were hundreds of people who knew the words and were like doing the thing. And also people were standing on the bleachers, including me, and I fell and I got a bloody leg. No. And I remember thinking, this is so rock and roll. And I was like, I went back. It didn't
so
stop
metal.
me none. Yeah, so metal.
To me, the beauty of Summerfest is that in the course of a day, you can see like the biggest bands in the world, and then local bands and cover bands and, you know, smaller bands. Like my quintessential Summerfest experience was one year I saw a Rush cover band from Palatine, Illinois. And then I immediately went and saw Rush, like one after the other. Like, to me, that's Summerfest encapsulated in like 3 hours. It's like those two shows back to back. Yeah.
They should have let them play together. Like, they should have let them share the stage. That would have been really cute.
Absolutely.
I've only ever been to Summerfest once, and it was, oh gosh, now that I think about it, it was probably 10 years ago. Yikes. But it was it was to see the Arctic Monkeys because they were my absolute favorite artist at the time. And at the time, I was also taking this like hardcore, intense Russian boot camp class at UW where you do like 8 credits of language learning in 8 weeks. Like it was insane. It was a time. Why did I do it? I was not a Russian major. I don't know. It was fun. It was fun. But I just remember like telling my friends, I was like, we got to get all of our homework done so we can go to Milwaukee so I can see Arctic Monkeys. So we sat in the library and did like 8 hours of Russian homework, and then I just like lost my mind in Milwaukee. It was a great time.
And you said like there are local bands. There's some Madison folks. I saw Paul Seabar, Tomorrow Sound on the list. Like you truly can go see some Madison folks in Milwaukee as well.
Love it.
We've done it once again. Thanks for rounding up the news with me this week. Haley Sperling, I'll see you Tuesday because Monday is President's Day.
Yes, we will be off on Monday, but we'll be back in your feeds with a very important and exciting episode on Tuesday. So happy to round up the news with y'all this week. It's been a lovely week. And Rob, thank you so much for rounding up the news with us too. It's been a pleasure.
Rock on, Haley.
That's all for today here on CityCast Madison. I'm Bianca Martin, your host. We're produced by Jade Isiri Ramos. Haley Sperling is our executive producer. Our theme music is by Carl Christensen. Rob Thomas is our newsletter editor. Don't forget, you can always get more news delivered right to your inbox by subscribing to Madison Minutes. And hey, if you enjoyed today's show, why not share this podcast with someone who likes to vote? See you back here Tuesday morning as we're taking a break for President's Day on Monday with more news from around the city. Until then, take good care.